The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
The loss was painful, but nothing is worse than seeing Rick Celebrini pull Steph Curry out of a game due to injury late.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Warriors lost 104-100. Felt like a playoff game from last year where it's just hard to score on Houston, man. They're huge all around. They were missing a few guys. We did not see Tari Eason in this game. We did not see Kevin Durant in this game. For the Warriors, no Jonathan Kuminga. You know who's getting close is DeAnthony Melton, who also scrimmaged with Kuminga, part of a 5-on-5 scrimmage at Chase Center with the Santa Cruz Warriors. We'll get into that in a little bit. That's music to our ears. But, it was Butler with 21, Draymond with 12, Curry with 14, Will Richard with 18, Post with 12, 14 for Pajemski. And then aside from that, 0, 0, 0. You get a 0. You get a 0. Not a lot of help from the Warriors bench minus that handful of dudes today. They say it takes a village. They did not get the full villager experience. But before we get to the villagers, let's start with the guy. Let's start with the warden, the Wardell, I should say. You like that? The Wardell. Yeah, hold on. I'll be here till next week. Thank you. Anyway, Steph Curry left the game. Steve Kerr actually saying it's a relief that he heard it was a quad. He said it's better than an ankle or a knee. So it's a right quad contusion per the Warriors. Curry's getting an MRI. Nothing else to report on aside from that. Fingers crossed, Kolsky.
Yeah, I think that's already a huge, Steve said it. That's already a huge positive piece of news. It looked like a knee to me, and that's scary. But it seems like maybe it was a Charlie horse. Sorry. Is that offensive to Charlie's? That's my bad. It seems like a bruise, maybe a little dead leg, if you will, more so than any sort of structural injury. Obviously, I guess an MRI will tell us the full extent, but quad contusion, it feels like the best possible result of whatever was going on with Steph at the end of the game. So that's good news. We've already had
the performance.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I can see we've already got 5 reasons for the loss listed in
great
the
defense
chat. And
not great defensive rebounding, but that's expected, right? And you didn't get the best game
honestly,
from Curry before he was
rebounding. The defensive rebounding was pretty good. They had more defensive rebounds. Look.
Silver
the Rockets are twice their size.
Yeah,
it's a structural disadvantage that they're going to have to deal with. And look, that was one of the reasons I was going to say of the 5 in the chat that they lost the game. They're all kind of right. If they don't give up 25 offensive rebounds, maybe they win this game. If they don't have some critical missed free throws late, maybe they win this game. If Steph Curry doesn't leave the game, or it's not even leave the game, if he isn't, the last couple minutes he played, he wasn't.
What was he doing on the floor? Because it just felt like he was dribbling into traps. He couldn't get away from anyone. He was clearly injured.
Yeah, I think if the quad contusion is, if that adds up to me, because if it's just like God, I don't want to offend you again, but I don't know what else to call it. I feel it's important to say Charlie horse here.
It's all right.
If it is a sort of a Charlie horse, right? If that's what it is, then that's the sort of thing like you're shaking your leg. You're like, all right, it's going to come back in a second. I'll be walking fine again in a minute. And you just kind of keep shaking it and it just doesn't quite come back.
But he turned it over like 3 times, probably due to that Kolsky horse.
I earned that. Yeah, maybe that's why, and maybe he stayed in too long. I mean, it says a lot about the state of Warrior guard play that
Like,
Quentin
what are you going to
Post.
do? Yeah. I mean,
Quentin
when he's
Post was the
gone,
guy who came in. You
yeah,
know,
when he's gone, you're thinking there's a chance there because Moody hits that 3. It's a 2-point game.
but
Free
then it's like,
throws the
who's
other
going to
way.
even?
It's like if you go into OT, what are we doing here? You know, no Kuminga too. And that's kind of what we were worried about in the offseason if Kuminga were to be traded. And as of right now, he may as well be traded because he's not playing. So it looks
Well,
the same. And you see the you see that Jimmy and the fellas aren't enough to win serious basketball games.
No, not against good teams. It's just
No.
not.
Not against
And
bad teams so far, too.
well, that to me is a different problem. I think Jimmy and company, or whatever version of the Warriors, honestly, should be good enough to beat the bad teams in at least 2 or 3 of the games that they've lost so far. A game like tonight, though, that's just not the case. Even without Durant, the Rockets are too good for the Warriors to get, frankly, even when Steph played and wasn't limping around, a dud from Steph Curry, a so-so game from Jimmy Butler, and without Kuminga or Melton or good buddy, they're just not going to win. So we can point to, 22 points off 16 turnovers that they had. We can point to, what was it? I think 2 for 21 from 3 in the second half. I mean, you can track good offensive half in the first, good 3-point shooting, bad offensive half in the second, bad 3-point shooting. That's a pretty direct correlation. And if it's not Jimmy having a particularly big game or Steph going crazy or Kuminga scoring, it kind of is a question of whether they make their threes. And then there's the refs, which I don't even want to get into. I'll never understand the whistle that Steph Curry gets and how he could be not just called for the offensive foul, but have a good call for a defensive foul overturned to a bad call for an offensive foul, and then have like the same call go against him on the other end with a review. That makes no sense to me. Even you could hear Tim Legler and Richard Jefferson being like, yeah, I don't know about that one. That was terrible. And then there were a couple, I mean, yeah, Steph dribbled into some double teams, and those were uncharacteristic in some ways. Like his turnovers are usually careless passes, not bad dribbling. But also he's getting just bounced around by those dudes and never gets a call. It's a real bummer. I am hard pressed to say that's why they lost the game, given everything that went wrong that was self-inflicted, but it didn't help. And then I think we got to talk about, like, okay, the Warriors, none of the Warriors' second half was good. You're muted.
I said, set me up for a tease because when you give me the okay, I know a 2-minute tangent's coming. And
yeah, I'm going to set you up for this tease.
Okay.
We got to talk about Steve Kerr's player choices, I'll call it, tonight. Because frankly, it's just, it's
and the numbers
unacceptable
he runs. It just seems like a lot. Why are you going 6 of Pat and 5 of Gary, and why only 28 of Will Richard? Run him 33. He was playing awesome.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
We are looking forward today to a huge NBA Cup game. Like, we are both Cup respecters. We established that before we started recording. That a huge NBA Cup game, the East Group B championship game, Friday night at 7:30 at the New Palace, Little Caesars Arena. Q, before we dive in, again, sorry for your loss today. I know it's a strange feeling. It's going to happen during the course of a season. How you doing? How you doing this Thanksgiving holiday?
I think 28 losses in a row got me prepped up for what a loss feels like. I think it's a bit 13 in a row. It tried, but it hasn't completely wiped away the feeling of what a loss feels like during that losing streak. So definitely a tough loss, but we're good.
I think that's important to remember. Like we have seen things. The fact that we're sitting here talking about a game with actual stakes that we are both legitimately angry is not on national TV, although Knicks Bucks will have some stakes to it. We're recording this while both teams are playing. It'll have some stakes to it. It'll have some meaning, but not quite as big as this game on Friday between the Magic and the Pistons. And we've talked before, like we've kind of viewed these two teams as growing rivals, as teams that are going to be established in the Eastern Conference. But when we talked over the summer to preview this very game, which we did talk about back in August, did you think the Pistons would be this? Like I think that's the story around the league is how did the Detroit Pistons go from a team that everyone thought was going to be very good? Don't get me wrong. But to be this good, a 13-game winning streak, which of course started against the Magic. We'll take some credit for that. Started against the Magic in late October, about a month ago. What is different about this Pistons team that has allowed them to play the way that they're playing right now?
Yeah, so I'd start off with saying I'm definitely shocked that they are playing this well, that they are, teams play really well and it doesn't always translate to 13 straight game win streaks. Like you can be playing maybe just as good as the Pistons have played and be a 12-5 team and still feel like, oh yeah, we're playing great. So the fact that the Pistons went on a 13 gamer is very surprising to me. I would say what's the biggest difference with the Pistons this year would be Asar is healthy from the beginning of the year. So you have Asar from start to finish instead of just changing it the midway through the point of the year like they did last year. So I think that's pretty big to have your best defender out there from the start. I think Cade has taken another step this year, and he's gotten even better this year. I think Jalen Duren, obviously, he's taken a leap as an offensive creator and as an offensive scorer that really has helped them within the half-court offense. It didn't help him so much tonight against Boston, but throughout the win streak, he's been incredible, and they've had, I believe, the fourth best half-court offense during the streak, and that was one of their biggest areas of weaknesses heading into the year. So I think that has a lot to do with Jalen Duren discovering himself as a shot creator. And then Trajan Langdon kind of swapped out some guys like Karis LeVert, but Dennis Schroeder has been a really good swap out because Karis brings more size, length, and defense, so it kind of buys into their culture. But yeah, I think they're just playing together. They're a deeper team than they were last year. Even when they had injuries, they have guys that can come in and play well. Javonte Green, Dennis Jenkins has been a great story. So they're a deeper team. They have more talent on this team. Their best players are available at the beginning of the year. And they've been more focused game to game than I've ever seen. I mean, obviously the Pistons have been bad for a minute, but their game to game focus has been crazy. Which is why, again, I'm sorry to reference tonight again, why tonight was so uncharacteristic. But yeah, I mean, that's why I'm pretty shocked by it, but it's very impressive, obviously.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying. There's like the Magic in 36 years have never had a 10-game win streak. They've gotten to 9 a few times.
For real?
Like it's
I did
for
not
real.
know that.
For real. Like they've gotten
Dwight,
9.
I would have thought.
They got 9 with Dwight like immediately after the Gilbert Arenas trade of all things. So little fair warning, just because you go on a long win streak doesn't mean everything's in the clear. The Magic won 12 of 13 last year and finished at 500. It's very, very early. But yeah, no, like random stuff happens in the NBA. Like, I mean, even something like the game against the Wizards, where a lot of guys were out and hurt, and you needed this super heroic game from Cade. Like random stuff happens. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. Winning 10 plus games in a row is extremely impressive. And again, I'm joking about some of those things, but only really good teams do that. Only teams that really have their stuff together. And so I believe we talked a little bit about this when we chatted in August. And I shared that I thought that the Magic going to the playoffs brought a like renewed sense of purpose to the beginning of last season before they really got hit with injuries. And I was curious how the Pistons would respond to that. Do you feel like a lot of the confidence that they've gained and just, again, like even like something like institutional knowledge, like we know what JB Bickerstaff wants from us. We've seen it be successful. how much do you sense that there's that, I guess, added layer of maturity of we've been here before and we're hungry for more to how they've started the season?
Yeah, I think the playoff berth really has played out. It really helped them a lot this year. I mean, within the first week of the season, Asar Thompson had a letter that he wrote to the Pistons fans, I believe with the Players Tribune, where he basically talks about how getting to the playoffs was like the greatest thing he's ever done, and he's never felt something like that before, and all he thinks about now is wanting to win for Detroit fans, and that hearing the fans go crazy in the playoffs just gave him a special feeling of, like, I forget what the exact words were, but it was like an open letter to Pistons fans, about how special it was to play in the playoffs and how everyone feels that and wants to get back there and wants to focus in every day just to have that feeling again. We've heard Kay talk about how important this year is and how now they set their sights not just on making the playoffs, but being a legit contender. And we're seeing how well they're playing, and hopefully they can continue that. But yeah, I think seeing the physicality of the playoffs, seeing them have some level, I understand they lost in the first round, but them having some level of success against the Knicks as a young team in their first playoff series gave them, okay, we might be onto the right things here. Our defense, having that be what we hang our hat on, that really carried us. If we can just continue to be that throughout an entire year, teams don't really want to mess with us. Teams don't really want to deal with that night to night. And we've heard JB talk about that. We've heard Asar and Duren talk about that. Isaiah Stewart talk about that. So I think having that experience in the playoffs and seeing you be able to get to the playoffs and be like, hey, we're hanging with the Knicks because we're holding them to whatever points a game. Like, they can't score against us. This is legit. I think it kind of has resulted in even more buy-in from everyone, even some of the bad defenders, into, hey, if we really play this way and buy into this identity, we know we can be great, and we just need to improve along the margins offensively, and we can be great. So I think the playoffs are playing a huge part in what they are doing right now. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of teams that are able to get their first playoff experience and taste what it's like. Obviously, we see some teams get to the playoffs one year and then maybe not get back. But like, I feel like for a lot of teams, it usually trends in the right direction. And the Pistons are definitely using that experience to their help this year.
Yeah, and it definitely feels that way. Like, we could talk maybe a little bit later on about that first matchup between the Magic and the Pistons. That feels like a lifetime ago for both teams, honestly. But it really felt like, Detroit got off to like a 2-2 start. Like, it was a little bit of a shaky start. And I remember heading into that game thinking this is a turning point for both the Magic and the Pistons. The Magic were 1-3 at the time. And it felt like that's a matchup between two teams, both with kind of the same ambitions. And the team that's more together and has maybe a little bit more maturity, the team that has more stuff figured out is going to use that win and a big win against a rival opponent to kind of leapfrog their season. And boy, did Detroit do that in that instance with that game being the first of this win streak. Before we move on to the Magic side of things, you mentioned like all the different pieces that have come together, but what's been the most surprising aspect of the Pistons start this season that maybe you didn't quite expect to work that has or has come out of nowhere to work?
No, it's by far Jalen Duren's development as a self-creator in their half-court offense. Coming into the season, I wrote about this over on my Substack. I heard throughout the offseason nonstop, and it's why you heard them interested in names like Naz Reid, Miles Turner, Santi Aldama. There were legit questions in Detroit about, look, we have a great defense. We think it's good. But there are some long-term questions about whether this tandem can be a good half-court offense, which in the playoffs, the Pistons had the worst half-court offense in the entire playoffs. So there were legit questions about whether they could have this core be functional and be good enough within the half-court offense. And Asar becoming more aggressive. He's been more aggressive as a driver. I think that's helped. Even on some of his misses, simply getting to the rim and forcing a rotation at the rim, that leads to the Pistons, who are one of the best putback teams, second chance teams, getting easy putback to the rim. So that's helped. But the biggest, by far, impact has been Jalen Duren scoring like LeBron on drives. Like, this dude is scoring 1.3 points per possession on drives. It's insane what he was doing before this game tonight. So I don't suspect for him to continue to score at a higher rate than Jokic and Giannis and guys like that on drives. I don't think that's going to keep up. But him being like this legit impactful driver within the half court has completely changed how teams have to guard the Pistons and really has taken advantage of the way teams like to guard Cade within the half court. It's made it harder for them to just send two guys at him and willingly switch guys onto Jalen Duren. So that's by far the biggest surprise. I did not see that coming at all, and it's taken us all by surprise.
Yeah, Jalen Duren's been so impressive. Like you like the basics of what he did because he's just such a great rebounder and a big body. Like again, sometimes it's just size, and he's honestly, he's the reason the Pistons are an Eastern Conference contender right now. Just that leap was so surprising. Again, still early, but it's certainly looking very, very good for him.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
The Thunder have improved, but there are still contenders out there.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast.
Joe, I know you've been watching the Pokes, watching the Sooners. I know you've been in football mode at times.
You have me on here and basically tell the audience this guy has not been watching the NBA. He doesn't know what's going on.
No, I tell the audience that you are actually
mode.
You're a maestro of everything. You're a tastemaker in this industry. You're a tastemaker in this market of you've got your finger on the pulse of not just the Thunder, but the Pokes and the Sooners. But you've also gotten to watch this Thunder team start out 17-1 as of this date. Maybe they'll be 18-1 whenever you're hearing this. Maybe they'll be 17-2. Who knows? But Joe, what to you has been the biggest difference in this team this year compared to a year ago in which they won the championship and won 68 games?
The biggest difference, Rylan. Okay. My not the biggest difference, but I reject the premise of your question, I guess. No, but the biggest improvement, because what's different? It's the same team. We're seeing certain guys improve. We've seen, J-Dub be out. The thing I cannot just wrap my head around is how good this team is defensively. And I know you're saying, well, they were the best defense in the NBA a year ago, historic defense, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all that's true. I can't believe they're even better than they were last year, coming off a championship. The defending champs, if anyone deserves the right to not exactly give it their all on any given night, it's this Thunder team. And Rylan, this Thunder team has a 102.8 defensive rating. Last year, they were tops in the league at 106.6. Now, those numbers, how many points you give up per 100 possessions? Thunder's at 102.8. 7.2 points per 100 possessions allowed, fewer than the number 2 defense in the NBA. That's the Detroit Pistons. That is the difference between the second-ranked defense in the NBA, the Pistons, and the 21st ranked defense in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks. I guess the difference in this team, Rylan, to go back to your wonderful question, is that they're even better defensively, and I did not think that was possible.
Yeah, they're even better defensively while missing multiple games from Lou, from Alex Caruso, not seeing J-Dub play yet as of the recording of this show. It's crazy how they're able to play at this level on the defensive end. But what's jumped out to me is on the offense. And perhaps that's been a bad thing on my part. Perhaps, it's been kind of glossed over because they are an elite defense. To your point, I will say, if you go and look at NBA history and you look at who was the best defense year to year, very seldomly have you seen a team repeat as being the number 1 defense in the league year to year, much less topping a historical season year over year defensively. So that is, to your point, a very big deal with this Thunder team. That's how they butter their bread. That's how they go on these avalanche-like runs, forcing the turnovers, stacking the stops, and capitalizing in transition. But Joe, last season, the Thunder won a championship and yet had a glaring flaw, which was their half-court offense. And talked about this a little bit this season in Sacramento, talking about how, they won a championship, but not the way that they wanted to win, not the way that they wanted to play. They didn't play their best basketball. A lot of that fell in the half court. They were sluggish in the half court. They at times labored to score. They went from the 6th best 3-point shooting team in the league percentage-wise to 13th out of 16 teams in the playoff field 3-point percentage-wise. And now the half court offense is just operating at a different level. And it starts and stops with SGA, because SGA has truly made another leap as a playmaker. The passes he's able to throw this season, live dribble passes, wrapping around a defender, throwing guys open. He's gone from making the basic, simple decisions, which helped him be a low turnover guy and helped the team try to get into some half-court action, to now he's still a low turnover guy, but he is seeing 2 steps ahead offensively as a playmaker and getting guys just brilliant shots. I mean, he's the player of the week this week, averaged 6.5 assists last week on a 4-0 campaign. So when you look at what SGA's done as a playmaking leap, that sets up very well to be a massive difference in the postseason. And then you couple that with his 3-point percentage, which right now is about 40% from 3 on the season. And if you narrow that in to just since November 9th, he's at 50% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He's also being able to be set up off the ball by a guy like AJ Mitchell. You imagine that whenever J-Dub returns, J-Dub will also be setting Shea up off the ball with catch and shoot threes, but he's also become more comfortable taking off the dribble threes, and that step back 3 that he's been working on for the last 3 years is finally converting at a high clip. I think that the biggest improvement, while there's many to pick from, we haven't even mentioned AJ Mitchell, we haven't mentioned Chet's offensive leap, but the biggest one to me is that Shea continues to get better, and he's found a way even this year, after all he did last year, leading the league in scoring, MVP after MVP with the regular season MVP, West Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP. He's still gotten better. And like, that's going to be the 2 things he's gotten better at, is going to elevate this team from where they were last postseason to where they will be this postseason.
You stole my number 2 improvement on my list, and it's Shea, and specifically his playmaking. It's remarkable. So basically, he's been a top 5 guy in the league. This is 4 years running now. You look back to his first top 5 MVP finish, first All-Star year, 2022-23. He averages 5.5 assists per game. Next year, 6.2. Last year, 6.4. He's at 6.6, his career high this year. And meanwhile, he's been over 30 points per game in each of those seasons. So he's still being Shea. He's still getting to the basket. He's still creating offense by himself, but he's creating offense for others more than he ever has. And I think, it's only 18 games in. He's the defending MVP, but I think he's on pace right now. This is the best he's ever been, because you have the playmaking and you have the 3-point shooting, which has been hit and miss throughout his career. I mean, Rylan, his shooting splits 54, 41, 90. And yes, I'm rounding up because he's an 89.8 free throw shooter. That's just absurd.
Yeah, and I think that the 90 portion of his splits, right, whenever you're trying to get to the holy grail of 50, 40, 90, the free throw percentage should be the one that climbs for SGA pretty easily. And so I think that this guy can realistically have a 50, 40, 90 season, which would be spectacular for him.